evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Red Zone. Leftist sports takes. I love it. I love seeing the chat, and you guys are talking about sports shit, and no one's going sports ball. I love it. I love it. You know what else I love? I love that some of you knew who the picture was of. I asked Marcus earlier, and he did not know. Someone on Twitter was trying to figure out who this player was. So I am getting a kick of finding preferably quarterbacks from the late 80s, early 90s, and making you guys try to figure out who these people are. I have a doozy planned for the next episode that I will be very shocked if you guys guess who the next quarterback I'm going to put up is. The doozy. Because I did stump show host Mac on the first one that we did of these. Usually everything I'll do is like an homage to the greatest quarterback of all time, John Elway. And even if you want to argue, maybe he's not the greatest, Super Bowls, Tom Brady's good, that's fine. That's fine. I'll go one step further into the greatness of John Elway. Is he the greatest number one draft pick of all time? Let's bring in the show hosts, and they'll tell you. Marcus, Mac.
Yo, what's up?
Is John Elway the greatest first-round draft pick of all time?
No.
Who's the greatest first-round draft pick of all time?
Oh, well, if you go, I was kind of like, my quarterback,
Any position?
First round.
Any position?
Well, no, when you're saying best quarterback ever, in my head, I'm like, you got fucking Joe Germain, the University. You got motherfucking Craig Krenzel, the Ohio State University, and you're over here throwing out scrubs like John.
How do you? Now I got to find footage of Elway coming back on Ohio State, a ranked Ohio State team with a horrible Stanford team in like '82.
Ask Jake Plummer about Ohio State.
That's right. Right. Fuck that. I mean.
All right, I'm done.
I don't. Yeah, greatest first round pick of all time.
I don't know if I could.
It's got to be Elway or LT. Honestly,
was he the first overall pick?
Oh, I mean, I thought we were just talking first round picks.
Oh, sorry.
You're talking number one,
first overall. Keep looking.
I'm digging here, man, but like
I think that's like not fair too. Is just even like his after career, the fact that like it's hard to take. Yeah, great Odom. That's
hey, Danarchist, you can go fuck yourself now, okay? That is rude. And it's hot max summer, so no one's allowed to piss me off tonight. Nobody.
Which I think we'll probably get into it later, but poking fun at people's injuries. Not okay. Not okay.
No, we're definitely going to discuss that later.
Yeah, just because Greg Odom was born with like brittle bone disease and somehow made it through college, it's not fair to come back and say what.
Someone says Jim Plunkett was the greatest first overall pick. I will push back against that and say Jim Plunkett had a very meaty. I can't even say the word.
I mean, yeah, I would probably say that too, Jason, only because you got to think of the time he was drafted. And I mean, the Raiders they had stout squads, late 60s, 70s into the early 80s, like you should be.
He doesn't get to the Raiders till what, 78?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I think he gets to the Raiders in like 79, 80.
Well, even then
he wins as a backup. We have to keep that in mind. He's splitting duty when he's there. He wasn't the consensus decision.
He said duty.
for his entire time with Oakland, it was always a battle with him for playing time. With people like Mark Wilson.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably go with Elway. I mean, he had a long career, a lot of stats, a lot of Super Bowls, and then he won 2 at the end. You know, like
he took a lot of teams that had no business being the AFC champions to the Super Bowl.
Well, he was also gifted.
5-foot
Was gifted
receivers.
it twice in the late 80s. Okay, like you had the drive and the fumble. Like, come on, those were acts of God to get him over the hump.
The drive, when you go back and watch that, that's when I was 9 years old, and I looked my father in the eye, and I was like, "This is my guy.
Oh man,
This is my guy." My dad just laughed at me. He's like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "This is my guy."
You saw the haircut swapped over the side. You're like, I
Big
need
ass
that.
teeth leading the way.
Well,
I was like, "This
so Mac
is
throwing out
my
LT.
guy."
LT, I think is definitely up there. Maybe if we get into but Deion Sanders, I think would be another.
He's a first rounder. He wasn't the first overall.
He wasn't first pick.
Mm-mm.
He was a first rounder, but he wasn't the first overall.
Oh, word.
That year, who went for? There's a lot of bad first overalls or guys that went into situations that weren't the best for them. Like,
well, especially in the time frame we're looking at, the 80s into the 90s weren't what you would call periods of time where people made solid contact with the number 1 overall picks. I mean, you got to think you had
David Klingler.
Klingler, Heath Schuler was another like top 5 guy. Tony Mandarich, you know, who was supposed to revolutionize the offensive line game.
But I mean, one thing we're not very honest with when we talk about people like Tony Mandarich, and there was another offensive lineman that came out maybe 10, 15 years after the fact the Raiders took number 2. I can't think of his name.
Robert Galley.
Tony Mandarich, which was a steroid beast who had a great workout, right? Tony Mandarich actually had a pretty long NFL career, but not at tackle.
Yeah, he moved inside to guard after he had like a 2-year break after like flaming out at tackle. And then he went to Indy where he had like, I think 4 or 5 solid years.
At guard, and he might even have made a Pro Bowl or 2 at guard. I'm not totally sure. I'm not sure on that, but I think we underestimate the steroid use of that era, especially when it came to the combine and workout freaks that were getting their status bumped up. And Tony Mandarich was one of those.
Jason, who was the other one? Philly. It was like Sean Minea. He was a linebacker.
What frame? What time frame?
It was early 90s, dude. He was at like the same boat. Like he was a workout
warrior. Was he supposed to replace Sean? Was he supposed to replace Sean?
Man,
who's the guy that died?
No, it wasn't him.
He's supposed to replace him though, right? Brian Bosworth, yes, another steroided monster that was supposed to revolutionize the game and probably had his worst game that is forever going to be his career, and I don't even think that was his whole career, was Bo Jackson acting a damn fool. And I've been in rooms with people that have said Bo Jackson was a bit of a steroid freak. They're like, how the hell do you think you pop your hip out a place like that?
Yeah.
That's some steroid shit. I don't know. I don't know Bo Jackson. I don't want to lie on his name and have him come find me in Mexico.
We're just going to keep saying allegedly to everything.
Yeah, yes. But I mean, that seems like when you talk about allegedly,
we don't have enough super chats to pay for really good legal defense right now.
Which, listen, you talk about allegedly and first round draft picks. If the glove don't fit,
yeah. I mean, I'm
OJ.
Yeah, which I mean, that's if we're going to talk about dangerous.
I mean, he literally played until he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen his final years in San Francisco? Have you ever seen the footage of him walking on the field?
Oh, it's almost as bad as Earl Campbell.
Yeah.
You know,
with the Saints, Earl Campbell ended his career with the Saints,
yeah.
I think. Yeah. You look at those guys where their knees were like bone on bone. Have you ever been around pro wrestlers?
Yeah.
And like they can't stay. Hulk Hogan can't stand up straight.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be 6'7". He looks like he's
the guy's name was Mike Mamula. That was the workout.
Oh, wow.
And he was taken 7th overall in 95 and did jack and shit in his entire career. But he was a dude that like jacked up like 225 like 30 times and you know, he was the workout warrior and then just showed he didn't know how to play football. He went to Boston College.
You never trust a Boston College linebacker. Bill Romanowski.
I don't typically trust linebackers that play for Catholic-backed institutions. So,
So no one from Holy Cross.
no,
You can't do it.
Nope.
Well, let's pivot real quick, and I want to let you guys start this conversation off. The USFL, which was a league that was my first ever professional football game, was the Oakland Invaders with Bobby Hebert, not Herbert, Hebert, at quarterback for the Oakland Invaders. I had a pennant. I wish I still had that pennant. I did find a company that sells USFL merchandise from the back in the day. You can get Oakland Invaders gear. You can get all those teams. Was it the Mississippi? Who was the Gamblers?
No, Houston Gamblers.
Houston Gamblers.
Yep. That's it. I got an OG shirt. I actually got a lot of them. I got the San Antonio Gunslingers, Houston Gamblers. I got a Flutie like t-shirt jersey from when he was with the Generals. And then I got the Memphis Showboats, which only made it through, I think, half a season.
It's very how do I say this? Like Western outlaw theme type of shit overall with the USFL. Like this is like some fucking like everybody who started this shit like was like raised in Vegas.
They were all outlaws. I mean, Trump was part of that league. There's a great ESPN documentary on it where Donald Trump doesn't want to answer questions.
It's called Small Potatoes. If you want to watch, if you like to read, Jeff Pearlman wrote Football for a Buck. And I read that book in a day and a half. I couldn't put it down. It was that good.
Damn, JB says SWAC gone pro. Damn. If you remember the SWAC, so I'm from California and I woke up early and watched football. So Marcus, the reason why I know all these Ohio State players is because we got East Coast games first. So when you guys are going to bed is when I got to see all the good stuff, like Hawaii play back in the day with Colt Brennan and Timmy Chang and all those guys.
Yeah, Tommy Chang. That was
when they were just lighting it up. Watching Boise State play when they were just lighting it up. And the SWAC was on BET. BET, when they were still black owned, played black college football. So if you wanted to watch, and they kind of did a big production of it.
I believe that was like their first TV deal, wasn't it?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that question, but probably. Now Deion Sanders, I actually do appreciate what Deion Sanders is trying to do with the black colleges, and getting a top recruit to go to one of the schools is going to be interesting. But the USFL, I did watch, I guess it was the last game of the first night. They did like a triple header. And I saw it and I was like, this is entertaining. They ran the ball the last like 25 plays. I was like, this is awesome. I found it extremely entertaining. The backup quarterback comes in and saves the day. I mean, there's a theme that Mac has, and there's something that I've been thinking about more and more, which is like doing things to have fun and not to make a buck. And I made some music recently, and I'm like, maybe I won't put it out. I don't care.
Put it out for free.
I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's out. It's the soundtrack for the new clip. This is
you know, something we could, I'm just gonna plug it now. But a friend of mine started something called Shared Records, which you could search for it on YouTube and on like Bandcamp as well. But it's just like free music, you know. It's just like free, a lot of like lo-fi or like the synthwave, vaporwave shit, you know, just people to like find, you know, I don't know. And it's just like an easy way for people to say, hey, I make this type of music, you listen to it, and if enough people listen to it, like their YouTube will be, you know, monetized. They got Patreon and all that type of shit. But it's just like a way of like, we make music to make music. If you want to support us, go ahead. But, you know, here it all is. But more people should do that. Right?
It's just like Carsey Blanton doesn't charge a flat rate for her music. You know, she did the song "Shit List" where she had the cheerleaders and then Richard Spencer getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
Like she's just like if you go to her website, she's like, just put $1 amount in and I'll get you the album. So like she doesn't give a shit, man. But like for me, like I love the USFL so far, and if you haven't watched it, if you're really into defense, you're gonna love it. If you like offensive football, maybe not for you, because what dictates good offensive play is offensive line play, right? The offensive line for any of the teams has not gelled whatsoever when it comes to pass blocking. So it's been atrocious to watch them try and run pass plays.
Yeah. And so we had said, hey, I want to talk about the USFL. I'm like, all right, apparently I got to watch some fucking highlights of this shit just to even get a grasp on what's going on. Better vibes than when He Hate Me came out. More, it's definitely more professional, in appearance and play and everything like that. But not bad, like not bad. Like I was like, okay, this is actually like pretty good play. But like, like you said, that's the thing that sucks is with the NFL, there is a level of maturation. Like there's no new systems really created in the NFL. Even if you get a brand new team that might suck for a year or two, but you got the Baltimore Ravens as well, right? Or like so and that's what's kind of difficult, and like just base layer shit, it's a lot easier to deconstruct things to construct than it is to construct. So just building an offense and having it be a reliable like thing, it's pretty difficult. And like offensive line is like one of the most important things, but also too it's like a defensive line. That's like having one good defensive lineman and you could have a good defensive line. Having one good offensive lineman and you will probably have an absolute dog shit offensive line. And that type of dynamic makes it really, really difficult to kind of like get this thing started up, and who, like, especially too is like, are these players like, is this all they're able to do? Is this their one job that they're doing? How much time is spent in, like all that's going to factor in, but not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. I mean, and the kicker is it's like they took their time at first, but when it came time to get people on the field, and you could tell, and it's always easier to implement defensive game plans and playbooks than it is offensive game plans and playbooks. So a lot like what we saw in the AAF, which somebody asked if that already bid it. Yeah, it bid it the year before the XFL 2.0. And that could be a whole other episode that I just rant and rave against Charlie fucking Ebersol over, but that's neither here nor there. But it around week 5, you saw the offenses start playing very, very well, right? And that's when the AAF died out in week 6. XFL 2.0 died in week 5, right? So you saw a scoring pickup and in that time frame, but like with the AAF, they brought in a majority investor named Tom Condon. He owns the Carolina Hurricanes NHL team, and he was kind of like just dangling the money they needed in front of them, and then never gave it to them. So that's why they were writing checks that were bouncing for pay or play and like putting them up in hotels and shit. The one thing the USFL I think is doing smart is doing the bubble play, just in Birmingham, where all 8 teams are playing, in 2 different stadiums and they're all kind of there. It's going to save a lot of money up front. And then the championship games in Canton, Ohio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame Stadium.
Yeah.
So like for year 1 with Fox money behind it, we probably see him make it through. I think it's year 2 is going to be where, like, if they decide to put everybody back in home cities, like we'll see what we have as far as fan support. Because like if you're from Birmingham, are you really going to like watch the, fucking Michigan Panthers? Like, do you care?
Yeah.
But we'll see how the Gamblers do in Houston and how the Panthers do in, Detroit. And when this season's over and they're going into like, well, how do we make the product better in year 2? We'll see, because next year you got to think there's going to be like a 2 or 3 week overlap with XFL 3.0, who's holding its season later than the USFL, but there will still be some overlap. So there's going to be some kind of there's probably going to be a lot of competition for players to get these leagues up.
Yeah. Which, and like, that's the thing, is like, how many NFL practice squad guys are there? How many 1 to 2 years out from like a pretty good college career? Like, how many of those players are actually out there to, I don't know, spread the love? So
yeah,
like,
I mean, and this is another thing we also I think are probably gonna have to factor in soon. Like, to declare for the NFL draft, you have to be removed from high school for 3 years, right? What happens when you get that, like a really talented kid that doesn't want to go to college?
Well, I think in a similar way, like Deion Sanders got, like just some top players to pull, like a paycheck's a paycheck. And especially too, it's like if you got some kid that could say, like, hey, I can, maybe start at, I don't know, Wisconsin in 2 years, which would be pretty fucking dope. There's, like 99.999% of like some of the top players coming out of high school would love if you get a guaranteed starting position on your second year at Wisconsin. Great. But if that's like the best you could ever fucking hope for on your senior year, maybe you take the check.
Yeah, I mean, and even with NIL being factored in, it's like we talked about when it first happened. The big name kids are going to make the most money, and it's going to give more of the student athletes the ability to cash in. But like, if you're like the third offensive lineman, going to pull a big NIL deal, right? It might make more sense for you to leave school and go play in the USFL or XFL 3. Because I think it's only a matter of time before they're like, you know what, we don't have to do the 3-year wait. This kid looks, big enough and good enough to play. And it can make sense for some players.
That's what I think, is like, is this a competition for the NFL or is this a competition for the NCAA?
Yeah, I let's face it, you and I both know there isn't a group of rich people with enough balls to set up something to go up against the NFL. The NFL is immovable.
I mean, and that's like, it would be a decade-long process to know, like you'd have to have a plan to say, yeah, we're gonna eat shit for 10 years before this thing even looks viable if everything goes right. It's just not, like football is not goddamn like sliced bread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can only have so much before you just kind of like topped out. Yeah, and like maybe not like you or me personally, but like obviously like the amount of people it needs to support it, right? And like go to the stadiums and buy jerseys and all that shit. The market saturation, blah 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 blah.
Well, can I ask you guys a question? And I ask this question to the chat as well. Do you guys feel like there is a need, unlike before, for year-round sports? I mean, we all grew up, even young Marcus grew up in an era where if you wanted football year-round, you played a video game, and generally you just fell into whatever sport was next. And again, I'm asking this question to the chat too. I would love to hear your guys' response. And if you guys feel comfortable, I'll put the chat on the screen. You guys feel comfortable? I'll put the chat on the screen. You want me?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead, definitely.
I think this is a safe space for us. I would like to know, do you guys feel that the USFL, XFL, the combine, all the footage on that, all the draft coverage we get now, extending the NFL draft to 4 days opposed to when it was at best, was it 3?
No, it was actually 2. Remember, they used to do 1 to 3 in day 1 and 4 to 7 in day 2.
I'm talking the 12-round days.
Oh yeah, back then, yeah. But like when they dropped down to 7 and what I think was it 92, 93? It was when the new collective bargaining agreement hit and they approved free agency. It used to be rounds 1 to 3 day 1, 4 to 7 day 2, and then now it's the first round is a day on night all its own. Then you have I think like 2 and then 4 to 7. I can't even fucking keep it straight.
Yeah, it's like 4 days.
Yeah.
And it's it just extends football as a year-round enterprise that we didn't have growing up. So is the XFL and the USFL a way to keep the year-round product there? And now we have tiers of football. We got our pro in college, big time college, and pro football in the fall. And then we'll have in the summer and the spring months, we'll have XFL and USFL to tide us over so we can watch all those guys that didn't get drafted or make a team. But we can keep 24-hour football.
Oh, you
Well,
go
I mean,
Nick.
for me, I think it's great because it gives more opportunity for players, right? Like, I really dig that. And like, dude, I was into like the Arena League, and I still watch the CFL because I enjoy the game. I think the biggest issue as far as longevity for these two leagues, okay, is going to be like Marcus, you already alluded to, like, how long are we willing to put up with taking financial loss, right? Now, the USFL is in a better spot than the XFL because the USFL has a guaranteed TV outlet with Fox, even if like Fubo and NBC stop covering it, right? Like they'll figure out programming space to put it on there because they're putting money behind it, right? Now, if you look at the XFL 3.0, this is a lot of private equity money. The brand and the league name were purchased by, Dwayne Johnson and his ex-wife, but as rich as they are, they do not have the money to float 8 teams with all the equipment, all the support staff, all the player salary, the insurance. Like, they don't have that kind of scratch. So there's a lot of private equity money here. And we all are smart enough to know that they will only take losses for so long, right? I mean, if I could have football year round, fuck it, I am down. Dude, let's do this. I will watch these games because I just genuinely enjoy the sport. But are the backers of these leagues, are they willing to take the losses? Okay. And then also, how do you do fan engagement? Right? Like, how do you do fan engagement? How do you get young kids on the hook? Because let's face it, kids drag their parents kicking and screaming into things that the parents have no interest in. But, we're going to go because that's what the kids want to do. Right. So, like, how is the USFL marketing itself to younger fans? I think that's a big thing that they're going to have to figure out because, I mean, look at how poorly baseball's done. Some of the best baseball players ever are currently in Major League Baseball, and nobody knows who the fuck they are, right? Because they don't know how to market. They're losing a lot of young fans because the games are super long. And what has Rob Manfred said? You know what? We're going to do better fan engagement. We're going to get involved with legalized sports betting. Like that's his fix.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was a big deal locally. But the Oakland A's just played a game where 3,000 people showed up to a major league stadium. 3,000 people. More people showed up to the A's minor league team at 5,000 people than the Oakland A's, who are playing okay baseball.
Yeah, I mean that's the kicker of all this is that Rob Manfred is openly allowing the owner of the Oakland A's to torpedo that team, so they have a justification to approve his, the owner's request to move to Vegas. That's what he wants.
Classic fucking Major League.
Mm-hmm.
Classic fucking tale of Major League, right? God damn.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the fucking Las Vegas, Clark County, and the city have shown, hey, we'll publicly finance whatever. Just bring these teams here, keep them bringing them, keep bringing them in, and we'll just keep building space for them to play.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So for me, you kind of split it between dealing with what we have now, and then hey, what would this look like in socialist utopia? What we have now, obviously, talking about the money, I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there as far as getting people in the stadiums, getting people buying jersey and consistently in the stadiums. I just don't think it's there. And like some of the issues you talked to of like, how do you actually get some type of connection to the community? How do you actually get some buy-in from like younger audience so that's like actually having people like wanting to engage in this thing for years, right? Hopefully until they die. Um, but it's kind of fucking hard, especially too, is like when the NFL is completely adverse to any of these things. They could look at it as like a development league type thing. I think that'd actually benefit the NFL quite a bit because like if there isn't a did you get into college hurdle, which I mean like if you're good at football, you're gonna get into a college. Like they don't give a shit. If you're good, you're fine. But like that's the thing is like that there are people who do get have to deal with some school issues and all that type of shit. Maybe even the atmosphere isn't good, for just some people. But yeah, I think like if the NFL was willing to say no, you're just gonna be our development league, um, and just allow them to be like grow and expand under that, I think that would actually be beneficial. But coming to like, hey, if this wasn't all based off of like how much revenue can these teams come in, because this is really not about whether people like watching football or whether people like playing football, because that answer is yes. This is all down to how much revenue are they going to be able to bring in. But if that wasn't the case, then like, yeah, of course, what I'm saying? And like, it doesn't really matter if the stadium's full or not, I'd actually that like a baseball game that's only got 3,000 people in it. That's more likely the one I'm going to go to than the one that's packed.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, space to stretch out and drink beers. But at the end of the day, is like,
like the developmental league part
yep.
of this though, Marcus, is it was USFL when they bought the World League of American Football and turned it into NFL Europe. They did nothing. Like the NFL Europe just lost money, right? And I'm not saying it lost a lot compared to the revenue that the NFL is able to generate, but it lost. So me, it was like, well, we can't have losses like this, which makes no sense to me. From like if you're trying to forward think here and like grow the sport globally, why wouldn't you have a footprint in Europe, right? Like why wouldn't you just keep one there? Like people don't realize like the German American Football League is hugely popular, right? Like they pack asses into like 30,000-40,000 seat stadiums, um, and like I'm with you, the NFL should lean into it and just subsidize them, as maybe like you said, this kid may not be inclined academically to do well, right? But he could really succeed on the field. Well, okay, you can go play 2 years of USFL football, and then we'll put your ass in the draft, and then you can play, professional football. Continue on your career. So, like, it's just absolutely nuts. And then on top of that, you have the NFL's special relationship with the NCAA and the Power Five, right? Like, so it's just kind of like we'll never see it like a developmental minor league for the NFL. But you know what I would love to see though, before we move on to the next subject here, I would love to see a relegation system like they have in soccer. Like,
yeah, no, that's what I was thinking is like, that actually what I do think is dope is when you have these different leagues, and that's what I guess too is like in their mind they're like, what if we can make football like soccer is everywhere else? And the thing is like that sports, the different dynamics of the sports, like you can't. It's just not even gonna happen. There's too much equipment necessary to play a fucking game of football.
Dude,
That's
can you
just
imagine
not
like
necessary to play soccer.
the 1 year where like the XFL and the USFL champ gets to step up to the NFL and like the Jags and Lions get relegated? I would love to see it.
But that would be fucking dope. But it would be years of actual buy-in, and especially from the NFL, and like that's in my head too. If you're an NFL, if you're in the NFL head shed, instead of getting whatever comes out of the NCAA and the fucking cockamamie offenses that those coaches are coming out, you could actually have some control over a league and the style of play that could be a better feeder to the systems and everything like that. And that's one thing that like those minor league teams, they give you, that pulling someone from USC and someone from Florida and someone from OSU and all these fucking things, that's never going to get you. Getting guys that are already in the system and then stepping up when, you know, someone retires, breaks their leg, or you just got the hot hand in the dice game and you're coming fresh, you know, like that just makes it fucking better. But no, I mean, the NFL, it's a bunch of fucking greedy assholes.
Yep.
And they're going to try and get theirs. And then you got these other groups of greedy assholes that are just trying to get there, you know, like that's that at the end of the day, that's what it is. And although, I mean, like, I hope it's successful, right? I hope it's successful.
Well, before we move on, I want to throw a monkey wrench in everything because, you know, that's my job. Mac makes
Listen, if you're not coming out saying relegation would be awesome, we don't want to hear it right now, Jason.
I want to speak to something you said about the Power 5 conferences and a moment in the mid-2000s where a lot of big-time players that are just now starting to retire were coming out of the smaller conferences. Randy Moss, Ben Roethlisberger, Chad Pennington. Who else was coming out of those small schools?
Well, I mean, even with Randy Moss, he was at Marshall for, you know, the
season,
before, yeah, you know, like the supposed problem child that he was, right? He was supposed to be at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he that's where he was supposed to be, you know. But I mean, even then, when he was at Marshall, his first year, they were still 1AA and like the powerhouse of 1AA, you know. So he was on an outstanding team. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of small school like legends that come up, but
Jason Taylor, I think, went to Ohio University.
Akron, he went to Akron.
Was it Akron?
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where, you know, Charlie Fry, I think, might have went in the second or third round, and
he did. He went in the third round to the Browns, and then ended up starting some games there. And as well, he also started games in Seattle. Getting back to our thumbnails.
Our thumbnail, the quarterbacks of Seattle that aren't the ones people know. But like, seriously, there was a moment where, especially where you guys are from, the Mid-American Conference was just spitting out all these pros. And we're not just talking about anybody here. Like Ben Roethlisberger has a very long career. We're not going to talk about his personal life. Let's just keep it for the football side of things. How does a guy like that go to that school in Lima, Ohio?
Oh, he would. Miami of Ohio is in Oxford, Ohio, and that is
he's from Lima.
Yeah, and that's just west of Columbus. And honestly, let's face it, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger wanted to leave the state, and Ohio State has never typically recruited large, like big quarterbacks like that because of the way the offenses that they ran. You know, they ran an option-heavy offense until the mid-90s, and then you saw them kind of go to like a more an I form, where kind of a caretaker quarterback, where we had like the Joe Germains and the Craig Krenzels, you know, come to the forefront of Ohio State lore. And then when Urban got there, you know, they did that, you know, the zone read spread. So you didn't need a big quarterback. You needed somebody that was more nimble.
He was there before Urban. This is who was the guy before?
Yeah,
Urban?
yeah. But I'm saying like Tressel ran a like an I form or not. Yeah, Tressel ran an I form. Cooper ran an I form, and in the 80s, Cooper ran a straight option offense. I mean, that's how Kirk Herbstreit got his name out there, and he was more of a passer. So, like, Ohio State never recruited big, strong arm quarterbacks like that. It didn't fit the offenses that they ran. And honestly, outside of Ohio State, I mean, Ohio teams make up, I think, like 40% of the MAC, and at one time maybe even 60%. You know,
but how does he not get recruited by SC? And, you know, listening to Ryan Leaf tell his recruitment story about going to Miami, not Miami of Ohio, but Miami in Florida, and meeting The Rock as a 17-year-old high school senior on his recruitment trip and all this other stuff. You know, that dude,
honestly, I just don't think Roethlisberger wanted to leave the state. He was a big fish in a tiny pond in Lima. and it's 4 hours from home. I mean, the dude played his whole entire professional career in Pennsylvania, which I think is only like a 5-hour drive from Oxford, like that area. So like, he's not far from where he was like the biggest man in town. And some people get off on that shit. Me, I never want to stick around a place long enough to where I'm like a fixture. Because at that point, I need to get the fuck out and go find something new to do,
Yeah, I mean, like, as far as, yeah, I don't know why specifically Ben, like, stuck around, like, maybe you like the fucking prey in Ohio. But
I mean, you guys are two
I mean,
Ohio
what was the original question? Was it all about Ben Roethlisberger?
No, I was just using him as an example of there was maybe four guys. I'll have to find that draft class. I think there was like 4 guys or 5 guys that went off in the first round of that. Was that 05? I think 04 draft. Maybe it was in 06. I can't remember off the top of my head. That were coming from small schools, and there was another draft the year before, and then the next year where there was more small school guys coming. Byron Leftwich is another small school guy. Yeah. And who's his backup that ended up starting? David Garrard is a small school guy, Eastern Carolina.
Yeah, Eastern.
A lot of small school cats were just coming out and getting high draft spots.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that just has to do with how much better scouting, was getting coming out of like the 90s. And with the NFL being kind of like the copycat league it is, when you see that, I mean, look at the Patriots. They take Brady 6th round, 199 overall, and he split time with a fuckstick named Drew Henson at that horrible school that will be nameless, right? Because he wasn't good enough in college to beat Drew Henson out. Henson played like 2 years in the league, 3 years maybe. I think 2 years as a backup at Dallas, 1 year as a backup in Minnesota, and then went back to baseball where he was like batting like 230, playing third base in the Yankee system, right? So it's just what scouts can see. So the NFL sees the Patriots hit it big with Brady, right? So what are they doing? They're going to East Carolina to see David Garrard. They're going to take a flyer on Chad Pennington, even though like he never really had a lot of like power in his arm, but he was stupidly accurate, right? You just had to, you just have to be able to find kind of those diamonds in the rough, and good scouts find them. Somebody mentioned Pierre Garcon, who went to Mount Union, Division III powerhouse. Like they went like 12 years without losing a game.
Yeah.
Right. So like a good scout can find these guys. And you notice that the teams that kind of scuffle and struggle are the ones that don't find those guys.
Yep.
Know?
Well, let me, I just found the 2005 draft. Alex Smith is the number 1 pick from Utah before Utah's in the Pac-10.
Yeah. Urban Meyer was his head coach.
Yep.
Which, and that's Brandon Jacobs, Bowling Green, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Urban Meyer took that. He'll be like, they were game day and shit like that. That was wild.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, these are the small school picks in the first round that I can find. DeMarcus Ware from Troy State. No, you think Troy State's a big school? Roddy White from Alabama, Birmingham.
Yeah, UAB.
And Logan Mankins from Fresno State.
Yeah, that was a big pick by the Patriots because he needed to really shore up like the left side of the line. And Alex Smith, when he was at Utah, they were in the Mountain West.
Yep.
The WAC had split by that point.
But so I guess I think there's still going to be plenty of space, I guess, for that. But I get like really at the end of the day, I think it would just give, if you do have some of these other development leagues, or if other leagues that could be utilized as a development league, you're just gonna have more opportunities for that, because the thing is, like, baseball does it, NBA does it, like, I mean, hell, with the NHL, you're looking more at development leagues than you are at actual colleges. You know, like the NFL is completely reverse.
Yeah.
To where it's like, oh, you went to college, where it's like, good luck getting on a team, fucking dweeb. You must suck. So you know, like it doesn't have to look a certain way. You know, obviously different sports, you know, they have different structures and shit like that. But no, I think more accessible sports is better. And if the NFL is just trying to push out, you know, and bully any of these shit out, that sucks for one. But also too, like, I don't think there should be a requirement to go to school in order to play. You know, like that's where, you know, like some of the dynamics just within the NCAA and college sports, I think is just kind of fucked up. Because there's tons of people who are just there to play that sport.
Yeah.
And like, why waste a professor's time? Why waste a seat in the classroom for someone that doesn't want to be there, or it's not going to show up anyway? You know, like,
Yeah. I mean, I think we can decide this now, Marcus. When we do the thing and we get the socialism, we're gonna support all these leagues, and there's just gonna be relegation. And I'm gonna be the first to say Detroit goes in the USFL and Jacksonville goes to the XFL. It's just that simple. Okay.
there it is. And Ohio State goes up to the NFL. All right, what do we got next?
Autumn Leaves is not going to like this next one, but I think it was important considering that it was part of the biggest trade, you know, at the trade deadline was the flipping of Ben Simmons for James Harden. And, you know, we're seeing that Ben won't play this year.
No.
He's not going to play.
Yes.
Because the Nets are getting knocked out of the playoffs. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
and also, I mean, I don't know if you want to.
Well, I mean, I was curious how this was going to unfold because, like, at first, you know, it was that, you know, he was dealing with mental health issues. I'm all, you know, like that. Yes, please. More players need to, when they're struggling mentally, take a time out, get away from the sport, get away from, you know, the spotlight, take care of yourself. Right. And then it was, well, he's having all these back issues and, you know, the Nets are in the middle like of the playoffs and they could really use anything, because, you know, KD is struggling, Kyrie is struggling right now. You know, I think KD's kind of already checked out because like during the press conference after the last game, he was just like, yeah, man, I'm just kind of forcing stuff. And, you know, really here, you know, it's just like, this is a playoff game, man. And you're not here.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say like this is probably one of the worst trades of my lifetime, right? And the thing is, nobody is touching Simmons if like the Nets want to just get rid of him in a salary, because he's just going to get paid way too much. And, you know, like they're stuck with him now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Kyrie sticks around. I mean, Kyrie left a championship winning team in Cleveland, forced his way out. Right? Like, to go to Boston and then force his way out of there to go to Brooklyn. And what do you think is going to happen when you're not winning with Kyrie and the way he thinks? Like, this team could be really bad again very quickly.
Insanely quick. Well, and I mean, that's the thing is like, you could be, you know, that's where it's like Ben Simmons now is this take, you know, like a focus outside of the sport, outside of actual play. It's like you're in the fucking playoffs and probably gonna get fucking swept. Like,
yeah,
not a good fucking look. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, like, and that's the thing is like, what if they're dealing with the fact that it's like now they have to make Ben Simmons their franchise player because you know everybody's outside of like, you know, like, I'm not gonna deal with this shit. And we just in like the NBA just is a league in which case, if you're a big enough player, you just do whatever the fuck you want and like, you know, bulldoze organizations and shit. That's
which honestly,
the thing.
I'm all for. I am all for.
Yeah,
you know, I think it's important for players to be in control of their careers, but I also think, kind of on the flip side, that they have fought tooth and nail to get these guys the paychecks that they get, right? Like, and they deserve it, I think. You know, people can argue with me that all day, like they shouldn't be paid that much to play a sport. Well, dude, I don't really give a shit. They work their asses off to get to this point in their careers to be one of the top players on the planet.
I'm fine with them getting paid whatever. It's just I think we all agree is that like we all need to get paid. Well, not me. I just sit in front of like just talk shit, right? But like people need to get paid more for the hard ass work that they do, right? That's the fucking problem, right? It's like those people have less of a fucking I guess shit deal when it comes to their labor relations. But you know.
But I mean, I think what also we're also getting to the point where we're seeing a lot of players very impatient, right? Like, okay, it didn't work out this season. I got to get the hell out and go someplace else, you know? And it makes it very hard to kind of build that, you know, kind of that cohesion you need. Like, look at Boston. Like, most of those guys have played together for almost their entire professional careers. And they are just smothering KD. Like, KD can't do shit on the court right now. And he's like arguably the best player on the planet, depending on who you're speaking to. You know, like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, is that with these super teams, right? In the NBA, you know, like I know it's like I'm thinking of like when LeBron takes his talents to Miami, you know, and then it's like the only way you're going, you know, like at that point, it's like you need at least 3 huge names to even think about getting a ring, right? Like that becomes the fucking model. And so potentially, right, if you're one of the all-stars, you could think in your head, it's like I could win a championship every year. Why not? Yeah. It's not going to be in the same year. It's not going to be the same team. You know, it's not going to be the same city. It's not going to be the same with the same players, right? There's no, hey, we're going to stick with this team. It's like, where do I got to go to get a ring tomorrow? And it's possible to do it, right? It's possible to say, we're going to jump to here and we're going to get a fucking ring. Oh shit, we're going to get 2, we're going to get 3, and then okay, bounce off from somewhere else. That, I mean, I don't know. And like that's where too is like I agree, you know, for players being able to choose, hey, you know, I want to do whatever. For a fan, there is a different dynamic, right? That you know, there's a different dynamic on the fan side that actually wants to get to know the, you know, like the players, want to develop those fucking parasocial relationships, wants to be fucking dodging them drunk driving on a Friday night, right? You want to develop those close relationships with the players on the sports teams.
Can I ask you guys a serious question? Again, this is to the panel and Mark bringing up. I was literally talking about this earlier today.
They brought up Maurice Clarett earlier, so I had it in the back.
You had to get back in there. All right.
Remember when you almost got shot hanging out with Maurice Clarett?
Yeah.
We're just gonna play pinball. You don't need a gun for that.
Yeah.
Sure you do. Because if you lose, you can just shoot the person who beat you.
What happens when sports now resembles the world of individualism that we live in? Where when I was a little kid growing up, Marcus, I would be really shocked if you had this growing up. Mac, you might have had this growing up. My grandma got this big JCPenney's catalog. And in this catalog, there was all the toys that any kid would ever want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also there was a part where they had the sports stuff. And it was like a little jersey and little pads and a little helmet. And it would be for the team you want, and it would be the player's number. So Broncos fans would be like Elway, and it would say Broncos on the back, and you got a little helmet, and you got some little plastic pads that would get you murdered if you really try to play with them. I always wanted one of those. And I knew every player from every team, and there was something about my John Elway poster on my wall that my father looked all over for me. Imagine how hard it was to find one pre-internet in Richmond, California. And he was the Broncos. He's literally still with the team. Dan Marino is the Dolphins. You could have a rivalry. Peyton Manning's final years with Denver and them doing those head-to-heads with Brady in New England were some of the best football games you were going to see for those 4 or 5 years that Peyton was there in Denver. What happens to the game? Basketball is the first ones doing this, and I think we're going to start seeing it more in football. We're seeing it with all these offseason trades. Baseball definitely has been doing it forever. what happens to the game? What happens to the casual fan when there's so much movement that the players that you love, that make you love the team, are constantly in flux?
I think it goes, honestly, I think what's like, and this kind of sucks, is like it goes really into the fantasy model where you just like players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Winston just bite my fucking feet. You just like players, you know, and the team isn't necessarily an aspect. Which, you know, I don't know, that allows like, yeah, so I'm not a big fan. I don't like it. And maybe this was actually good, goes good into um the next topic
Well, I mean,
with that San
kicker and all,
Francisco, but
yeah.
yeah, no,
The
I think it
kicker in all this
sucks.
is
I think it
the
sucks.
NBA has already been like this. More people who
Yeah.
love basketball, but they're fans of individual players anyway, right? Like that's where it is, you know. Like for me, I look at it as more like, honestly, the soccer model. Like you have some of the biggest stars play for some of the top teams, and then the team can sell your contract at the drop of a dime because some other team is willing to pay for it, right? But you still have these ridiculous fans of these clubs overseas. So like I just look at it as part of the game now, like especially with me being a Guardians fan. Like I've been through the very highs of being a Guardians fan, and I've also been through the lows where Cleveland was essentially the farm team for the other 29 teams in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Like I'm a Pats fan that was crushed.
Like,
do you know what hurt me most being a Pats fan was watching Drew Bledsoe put on a Bills jersey.
oh wow.
I was like, this was all built on those beautiful broad shoulders of Drew Bledsoe. And you send him to fucking Buffalo of all places.
Is the thing, though, is that what sucks is that like the rivalries, and then like and then this is like separating, like they're going to like professional sports. And like I don't know, like Detroit and Cleveland, like just because OSU or like Ohio and Michigan have that type of thing, but there's certain like rivalries that you got in sports, and that takes time to like actually like I don't know, develop, that dynamic. It takes time to develop. And once players start going back and forth and like you completely lose it, right? You lose that extra dynamic of like, this is a special game, not because any fucking stakes are extra on the line, but because I really, really hate this motherfucker right here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that is about sports that I like, but like, it's just part of the dynamic that there's just, you want to win every game, but
bro, honestly,
if we lose every game but beat Michigan, it's fine.
We were raised in hate. That's all it is. we were raised in just abject, which like dictated like the teams we pulled for, right? Like OSU fans, like I don't just hate Michigan. I hate Michigan State too. Wait, I hate Eastern Michigan, and I hate Western Michigan, and I hate Central Michigan. I hate the Upper Peninsula. I hate the Lower Peninsula. I would trade Michigan, the entire fucking state, to Canada for Quebec. The food's better, the music scene's better, and it's more exotic. Michigan sucks my ball sack. The
just
entire
as racist.
state.
No, well, and this is
and that's the hate I grew up with, Marcus. Like I just hate the entire state, and I hate the western half of Pennsylvania because it bordered right there next to me. So,
question. Speaking of rivalries, does the name change? Does the name change for the Washington football team? Does that affect the Cowboys, the Dallas and Washington rivalry?
No, I think that has more to do with location than the actual names. Right. I mean, for racist people out there, they probably got really behind it just because they're racist. But I think for actual fans of the game and the teams involved, it's still going to be like, I hate you because you're from DC, like you play for that team in DC, and I hate you because you play in the house that Jared built, and he sucks dick, you know? So like, I don't like either team. I think they're both waste of space. And let's go relegation. Let's get the gamblers up here. You know, let's get the.
Well,
let's see it happen.
And the next one, you know, speaking of players moving around, and this is something that's interesting. I think it like actually connects with like, you know, players going around. And but this with the NFL, Deebo Simmons have potentially leaving San Francisco. The thing is that I guess is like kind of most interesting to me is no one, at least now that I've heard, really understands why. There's not been like a really like upfront stated reason that I've been able to figure out. But incredible fucking wide receiver that they can't just seem to make happy. There are other places, I think the Jets is like one of the teams that's been floated that's like would be a good fit for him. And it's possible, like they've at least got the goods to trade for him. But yeah, as far as I don't like it here and I'm leaving, that's something a car mechanic could do, something a nurse could do. A little bit difficult when you get into these contracts and stuff like that for professional athletes. But he's got some leverage, right? And so
yeah, I mean,
don't know. What do you think?
What kills me about this, it's like he just finished up his third year, right? And the dude just blew up last year, right? Especially in the second half. His career stats are 2,508 yards receiving. He had 14 that last year, right? Like career, he had 6 of those last year, right? Like, so he really just blew up. And not to say he wasn't like ridiculously talented. I just think it took Kyle Shanahan a little time to figure out how to get him comfortable in the offense, right? But Shanahan's offense is perfect for him. He had 1,405 yards receiving last year, 6 receiving touchdowns. He had 365 yards on the ground, 8 rushing touchdowns, right? Like this dude just balled out.
Good play.
Yeah.
Which, and that's what was like good system for him. But like, yeah, the dude could ball. Like he gets his hands on the balls and you don't know what's going to fucking happen. And then he's in the end zone, like.
Yeah. I mean, he's a taller, more jacked Tyreek Hill, right? Like he is. He's a very physically imposing wideout. Now, I mean, this is just like speculation on my part. We saw Tyreek Hill sign this huge deal. Wide receivers getting paid crazy money. But we also know that NFL teams are notoriously like trying to find a way to get over on players. So I think a lot of where Deebo is coming from is that he, during contract negotiations, is not going to get wide receiver money. They're going to sit, the Niners will bring up some shit like you're a hybrid player. So we don't need to pay you wide receiver money. We need to pay you what, kind of like as a mix between a wide receiver and a running back.
Do you think fantasy numbers to a certain extent drive player prices because Deebo is kind of a machine in that category that we've never seen before, in the sense of you compared him to Tyreek Hill. I don't see Tyreek Hill in the backfield as much. He's different than Percy Harvin. He's different than I think anything we've ever seen because he's
we saw Cordarrelle Patterson. Yeah, we saw Cordarrelle Patterson do this last year, and this was Patterson's first like really like ball out season, and I think he's been in the league for
a long time.
Yeah, and he was just normally like the kick returner guy, right? And it wasn't until a couple years ago, like his last 2 years in New England, where Belichick just put him in the backfield just for shits and giggles, and it actually worked out fairly well. So when he got to Atlanta, I mean, he had like 1,200 yards from scrimmage and like 12 touchdowns this past season, and you can kind of see like that works.
But this isn't new, but it is, right? Because we saw it in the Bill Walsh years with the West Coast offense with people like Roger Craig. And then you saw guys like John Gruden double down on it with cats like Garrison Hurst.
Yeah.
Later in his career, where it's like, we'll split the running back out wide. Roger Craig had a season where I think he caught 100 passes.
Yeah,
Reggie Bush, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this type of athlete where he could kind of do everything on the field. But Deebo is taking it to a whole nother level, as is I think Tyreek Hill. We'll see if he lines up in the backfield in Miami. I think they'll probably use him more. But when
Yeah,
you are kind of a Swiss Army knife like that, are you also shortening your career because you're taking so many more hits? Unlike, say, Steve Largent, Charlie Joyner. I mean, these guys
yeah,
played double-digit years. Will Deebo taking those hits inside? The guy runs hard, and Tyreek Hill, another guy, really gets hit hard inside. Much like fighters, and no one really talks about this with the NFL. Much like fighters, you got to cash those checks.
yeah,
When you start taking those hits and you're holding on to the ball, we saw it with Keyshawn Johnson at the end of his career. He was never afraid to go over the middle. It's like you can't keep thinking that those checks are going to get cashed.
Yeah.
yeah,
The thing with Deebo too is that it's one thing to and like right, he runs hard as fuck. Like it's like a motherfucker that runs downhill. Like this it's one thing to run downhill into a safety or a cornerback. I mean, hell, like even an outside linebacker, I would take over getting squared up by anyone on the defensive line, or God forbid, a blitzing linebacker. Or,
yeah.
it's just two different. It's just different. It's two different worlds. And like, I mean, like I play sports. Like you, those hits. Like the clock is fucking ticking. Um, If you ever see let's say it's like a wide receiver be unfortunate to have to like, do on a sweep and get squared up. Yeah, there's that, and like this is it could be one play, right? It could be one fucking play, and then Debo's gone, right? And it's just what could have been. He's
Yeah,
got
I
a
mean,
lot
well,
more longevity, yeah, taking on taking on the safeties than he does linebackers and defensive line.
JB1, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it, man. But he's got a question for us, Marcus. What does Deebo, San Francisco, and not over money say about San Francisco's supposed franchise quarterback Trey Lance? I think Deebo is more comfortable with Jimmy G, only because Garoppolo has kind of like the game experience that Trey Lance doesn't. For me, Garoppolo, before the upper body injuries, and he's had multiple shoulder injuries. The dude is just like, I don't know how he has a labrum, rotator cuff, or like he's taken some pops, right? But I think that's what it is. Like as a wideout, you want to know the quarterback is going to be able to make his reads and make the throws. And Jimmy G, given time, can do that, right? But he's also a guy who will throw 4 interceptions in a game and only have like 5 other completions. So, like for me, I think it has a lot to do with not trusting the young kid coming up. And if again, this is just speculation on my part. Look at Trey Lance. He played 1 year of college football at North Dakota State, right? That's it. So, I can see Deebo's hesitancy, but I think Kyle Shanahan is probably one of the top game callers in the league, and that you should have a little faith in what he's able to get out of Trey Lance before you kind of like hit the eject button, like I want the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like I want Deebo
Which
to make his
that's
money. I really do.
yeah.
I want him to get that bag and
That's yeah.
carry on his career. But like for me, this is kind of weird. Like this is really weird.
I mean, that's something's like like Ben Simmons, Deebo, like completely different situations. But at the end of the day, like the players and doing whatever the fuck they want to do, whatever makes them feel healthy is, I think, is like the most important fucking thing. I would only say too is like, what is this? What can I say? I mean, honestly, it's like you look at the fucking relationship between Terrell Owens and fucking Tony Romo at some points, and it has nothing to do with on the field play, and you just know that these motherfuckers just love each other for some apparent reason. And it is what it is. It could be something as simple as that, right? To some of it's like just a type of chemistry that doesn't doesn't fucking spark with some people. So it takes longer, and and sometimes just never fucking happens.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more than that on kind of like at least coming from Deebo and like how reluctant it seems on his side to even like have any type of like reconciliation with San Francisco. Yeah, it seems like a little bit more than like, hey, I don't have
dude,
trust in this quarterback.
because like he was at a club last night and somebody had this I don't know why you bring this to the club with you, but it was this like giant handheld marquee sign that said Deebo's not leaving, and like Deebo's in the same club, and he like somebody's recording this and Deebo's like like he's already saying, nah, dude, I'm fucking out. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, one, again, what bouncer is gonna let you bring that shit in? Because Marcus, they were on the dance floor just holding that shit up. And I was like, what the fuck? And then Deebo's just like standing up, like, No. So like there's something wrong with the relationship there. I don't know if it's like general manager, who's paying his fullback $5 million a year for a position that's rarely on the field, right? Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, I think this is kind of weird because it's not like Deebo's been in the league 10 years. It's not like he's like an established name, but like I figured like hell, you'd rather have a dude that can push the ball down the field to give him, Deebo the opportunity to like kind of break away from coverage, get under it, have the big plays, stuff like that. But I mean,
speaking of which, though,
weird.
Interesting thing, and like we're also, making another fucking draw to Ben Simmons. But is there a potential for a, let's just say Jets, give up their 10th round pick for Deebo is like some of the stuff they talk about. There's quite a bit of fucking, good wide receivers coming out, like is this potential where, Deebo was just good under this specific system, under Mike Shanahan, although Jets run a similar system, that it's maybe some things just don't fucking work out, right? But then, San Francisco, like, I guess what I'm trying to say too is that since Deebo is young, as you explained earlier, a lot of his actual fucking, stats are coming from last season, the later half of last season. There's a potential that, this is just a good few months and that's all it ever was. I doubt it. But, there's that potential there because like shit happens. Does San Francisco, like, I don't know, at this point too, it's like the San Francisco just cut and run and say like, hey, we can get somebody new and just go from there.
Well, like somebody already pointed out, this is like a really deep wide receiver draft, very deep wide receiver draft. And if I'm John Lynch, he's made some questionable trades, but for the most part, he's hit, he got San Francisco out of like the Trent Baalke years, which, Baalke went from running the San Francisco 49ers in the ground. Now he's currently running Jacksonville into the ground. So I don't know how he keeps failing upward into more jobs, but like, that's neither here nor there. But like if I'm San Francisco and at 10, if I can get a guy like Olave or Wilson from Ohio State, the dude from Arkansas, there's another one coming out of Penn State. There's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft. If I can get a haul for Deebo, why not? That way you can move back up into the first round because you're gonna get a first rounder and return for Deebo, and then probably get like a third and maybe even a later pick of the following year. But like it would give him the opportunity to plug holes that are on that team, and you can still like draft a guy, a wideout that's ready to play now. So I mean it's plausible. I don't think John Lynch wants to do it because Deebo is like, the fans love him. But Whoa. JB, knock it off. Name a good wide receiver out of Ohio State in the last 20 years. Them are fighting words, sir.
Yeah,
I can name.
Fuck, who is the guy? And like, actually, the name's slipping me, but for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they end up fucking getting some rings there.
Santonio Holmes.
Yes,
Santonio
see,
Holmes.
Come on.
All right. And then you got Terry Glenn. You've got Terry McLaurin, and Washington's doing a great job. The wideouts from Ohio State can do some damage. So, sir, David Boston before he got hurt all the time.
Boston, yes.
Okay, like, come on.
Actually, speaking of Deebo,
you're being rude at this point.
Is Deebo like David Boston, especially at his peak roid freak?
Yeah, if we're being honest, that's exactly what did David Boston in. His joints went because it was carrying 230 pounds of muscle with 2% body fat. It's not sustainable, man.
his bones literally pulverized his own. His muscles pulverized his own bones when he was doing curls. Shit. But no, I think to the point though, it's like, I don't know, if I'm a team, coming from a team coach perspective, and especially with this draft, right? And I think even too, it's like you got a fucking wide receiver out of Georgia Pickens, like you got space, you got room, you don't have to fucking force this square peg into the round hole. And if it makes the dude happier to play, like go on with it, you know what I'm saying? But that's the weird too. It's like none of the, it could be this, it could be that, really explains, I guess it explains it to me, but either way, even if it's just, I don't like the weather here, someone should be able to go pick up and go and do their job in a place where they see fit, and
yeah,
that's where it's like trying to hold on to some player doesn't make any sense. And especially too, it's like with this draft, with the options available, with the fact that like he could get into another system that, like it just seems like you could work around this without trying to have to force it,
Yeah, and Shanahan, I mean, they still got Ayuk, they still got George Kittle. Like it seems like Shanahan just finds running backs on the streets and turns them into like 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah.
So like there's like he's really good at his job. So I mean I don't know, like if this thing stretches into like OTAs and shit, like it's gonna be really like I can see Deebo just saying, you know what, dude, you had the opportunity to trade me, I'm just gonna sit.
Yeah.
And if that happens, like there's gonna be like a grievance filed. The Niners will try and recoup pay. Like that. And all that's going to do is like kind of like what the Steelers did with Le'Veon Bell, when he sat for a year and was just like, fuck you,
yeah.
I'll go without pay. You can have it. I want to be a free agent now. So,
which I don't know, like I think you need a little bit more stock, right? To start pulling like I'm gonna sit a year.
Question, moving on as we're getting later and later, and I do want to hit this. I thought this was an interesting topic. As Deebo Samuel is taking up a lot of the oxygen in the pundit sphere of where he might or might not go. There's a number 1 draft pick. First overall, I believe, unlike John Elway. It's never happened to John because he was great. And you never draft a guy 1 overall that's 5'8" with tiny hands and went to Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield can't find anyone that thinks he is the future of an organization. That's saying a lot. Because as people guessed wrong on who that quarterback was on the screen, Dan McGuire got multiple shots in the NFL. Rick Meyer got multiple shots in the NFL. We've seen a lot of first-round draft picks, especially 1 overalls, get multiple shots unless there was an injury issue.
Fuck, didn't Ryan Leaf get a fucking play?
He did.
Leaf was with 3 or 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
But really, What is the deal with Baker Mayfield? I refuse to believe he is that bad of an NFL player. I refuse to believe he doesn't understand how a defense works and he can't read one. I refuse to believe he can't read a playbook. What is it about Baker? Someone says Jeff George, another great example. There's too many examples of guys that have stuck around. Why may we see? There's only two guys like this that I've seen. They just disappeared from football. I remember Jimmy Clausen was going to be Joe Montana 2.0. Basically, anyone that goes to Notre Dame that's white, you're going to be Joe Montana. Yeah. Jimmy Clausen was supposed to be Joe Montana. He played 1 year at
went 1-15. 1-15 that year he started.
He didn't play defense. He didn't play special teams. You can only do so much. It's one guy.
Hey, he was Joe Montana 2.0. All right. Well, actually, at this point, it was like 6.0. What did Joe Montana?
Bill Walsh was on the seat. Was rather hot under his wrinkly testicles before the 81 season. For those of you that want to go down we have misty watercolored memories of Bill Walsh. Like he walked in the door just winning games.
Hey, Jason, that's because he's football Jesus. He's football Jesus.
Now, that's not how we started, right? You're going to do what? No, we're going to run the ball. You're going to do what? You want to draft who? But seriously, Jimmy Clausen had 1 year. I believe the next year, Cam Newton comes in. Am I wrong?
I think that's correct. Yeah, because they realized that Clausen was what we like to call ass. So
Cam Newton, I don't know Cam Newton. I really want to get him on the show. I watched him try to explain the shit he said on that radio show.
Oh, yeah.
I think Cam Newton he's an interesting player. I remember watching him in the spring game at Florida, and I was like, I think this guy's better than Tebow. He was backing up Tebow.
Oh, so that was before the computer thefts.
Yeah, okay. It was before that, right before that happened. So, Jimmy Clausen plays his way out of football real quick. Jamarcus Russell, you guys can say what you want about Jamarcus Russell. There were other teams that were trying to get him to try out. He just didn't care.
Yeah, and it's because he didn't really want to play football. There was a reason he only started a year.
I ran into that fool at a Blockbuster in Montclair, which is an area of Oakland when I lived in Montclair once. And my first thought was, that is a big nigga. God damn.
I mean, dude, Jason, remember at LSU, like when they put the player graphics up, they're like, Jamarcus is 6'5", and they go, he's 240. But when you looked at that dude, you're like, there's no fucking way he's 240.
He was I ran it literally this is how long ago it was when you went to like, I'm renting some movies tonight. What you want to see, family? Like back in those days.
Jason had that the $10 a month, rent as many as you want from Blockbuster.
Where you got to go pick up the pizza too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you got to go do Jamarcus Russell. I saw him from the street, like driving. I was like, "Fuck me!"
You were in a plane. He was in the street. That's Jamarcus Russell.
That's like you knew it was him. He was just grinning. I was like, Jesus Christ,
dude! I don't think
he had to be 6'7".
Yeah, he was a giant man. I don't think he had you got to think this is Oakland, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Trash front office, no real support staff. Al Davis is in his slide into senility, where if I can just get a guy to throw the ball really far and I draft some really fast people, I'll just win all the games. And it's like, it's not how it works.
I'll say this about Jamarcus Russell. His freshman year at LSU, they played Arizona State. I think at Arizona State or Hawaii. They played some school on the West Coast. And I watched it. I remember this very vividly. I was in my daughter's room watching TV at the time as she was running around being a child. And I was like, I'm going to watch football in here because I can. And it was a really good game, and it came down to like the last play of the game, and Jamarcus Russell threw like a 20 or 30-yard bullet on a line like I'd never seen before, the kind that goes through hands because you can't close them quick enough. And I was like, this dude might be legit. He had a rocket.
Oh yeah,
for an arm.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. He
Rocket.
Amazingly like physically talented, but like this was a dude that played on it, and like the LSU coaches were even like, dude, you know, they were because ESPN did a 30 for 30 on Jamarcus.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and they even like Jamarcus was even like, yeah, man, my coaches were making my reads for me, and like he's like, it was easy to throw a football. He's like, I had trouble like reading things because like I didn't, like you said, he didn't really give a shit, like he wasn't into it. He was just a guy who had this amazing physical talent that I mean, I don't even think he really wanted to play the game. It's just like, this is what you do.
That's like, it's like, you meet someone who's like tall as fuck and like, you like
Greg Oden.
You play basketball? Like literally everybody that's like, like over 6'4" is asked 30 fucking times a week. Do you play basketball? And it's like that when you're that size, you know what I'm saying? Like Shaq's only gonna ever do one thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's not true. Like he likes to become like become a cop as an honorific. He's really into that shit now, which kills me.
I mean,
Dana saw Steven Seagal doing it and was just like, all right, you can keep this fucking going.
The Danarchist says Todd Marinovich, and Danarchist, I'll say this much about Todd Marinovich. I, again, huge Pac-10 fan growing up, loved watching Todd Marinovich to Johnny Morton, and I really thought, and I hate the Raiders. I remember rooting for Todd Marinovich against the Chiefs in a game. I thought Todd Marinovich was going to be the next great Raider. Little did we know he had such a horrible drug problem and such a strange relationship with his father.
Yeah, his dad beat the love of the game out of him.
Yeah.
And we wonder why he was like, okay, I'm just going to do every drug I can get my hands on. But he did those drugs, and then he realized, okay, I'm slowly killing myself, so I should probably do something else. And now he's like a really fucking rad ass artist. Like he just paints all day. Like that's really cool.
But I do want to bring this. I do want to bring this back, right, to what the
back to
original
Baker,
point,
back to
right?
Baker,
Baker Mayfield, right? And the point, and the thing is, at least in my opinion, okay, is that this has nothing to do with Baker Mayfield at all, and that may be hurtful to Baker, may be confusing to some. But Baker Mayfield plays for the Cleveland Browns, okay? No, you don't just go to the Cleveland Browns, have a good career, and then leave, okay? Cleveland infects you, all right? And Baker Mayfield, he's got Cleveland. And good luck to you, buddy. And this is the thing. Everybody said it. Every top player that goes to Cleveland, they always say it. Cleveland's going to ruin him. And guess what? It always does.
You know what? I'm gonna disagree with you here because Cleveland's fucking awesome, Marcus, and you could gargle my nutsack. Okay? Like,
how am I wrong though?
Okay, well, you're not far off the mark. Okay?
Tim Couch had hope.
That's a given. No, Tim Couch did not have hope.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't. That man was murdered that first year back from being like moved to Baltimore.
I said he had hope.
Yeah, that's not hope.
No, I said he had it. He had it.
No, that bitch was like, I'm the number 1 overall pick for an expansion team with no offensive line. At that point, when you realize that, you have no hope. It's just, I hope I survive. Like, the only hope he has is to survive. That's
just like the defenses we saw in Kentucky and SEC, the greatest conference of all time.
But like, I think, honestly, it's because before all this shit, with Watson happened, right? Before, like Cleveland front office is flying down to Houston to talk to him. And then, Watson's flying to New Orleans and Atlanta and all that shit, right? Like, say what you want of Mayfield, like he did play with the torn labrum. Like that is a horribly painful injury, right? And then while the Cleveland offensive line, like that's a general strength for the team, they had so many injuries last year, so he just took a beating. There's a reason that like Nick Chubb is getting dinged up all the time, right? Like because that offensive line, when everybody's healthy and present, is probably one of the best in the NFL. But when they have to plug and play, they're not the deepest on the offensive line. So like their big players are getting beaten the shit out of, right? Resurrect Brian Sipe. But like I honestly think it has more to do with him coming out publicly before like the deal with Houston was done, saying, I want the fuck out. Like you're chasing somebody else while I'm still here after like playing for like 3 different coaches in his first like 2-3 seasons with 3 different offensive coordinators. Like if the dude can digest enough of the offense to play well, I'm not saying good, but he's played well enough to like literally put Cleveland in the playoffs, right? Like 2 years ago. Yeah. Like he can understand a playbook. I think he just needs to be in a system that predominantly is run from the shotgun, which is going to give him a little extra time, right? And then you're going to have a very capable tight end, very capable slot receiver. That way, if he makes that initial like downfield check and he can't hit it, you've got someone right across the middle for him to get the ball to.
Would you guys agree with this, especially a guy like Marcus that grew up in this era? I felt like post Ben Roethlisberger, we are spoiled when it comes to quarterback play. And I say that because Dan Marino was a freak. You only get one Dan Marino. You only get one guy in his second year in the NFL breaks every passing record that you could have in a 16-game season.
He did that on cocaine, everybody. On cocaine.
See, maybe that's...
Which is why he fell to the Dolphins. Because they're like, this dude likes blow and he likes to party. And then where does he go? Miami, one of the best party cities ever. And he's still out there slinging the fucking football.
Lit it up.
Are you kidding
5'7" wide receivers. Lit that shit up.
He could see where the defensive line was going before they got out of the huddle. He was on so much cocaine. He's like they're thinking they're moving as fast as fuck, and he's like, it's like the Spider-Man, scene where he's just like watching the guy move slow motion.
Motherfuckers, he's seeing sound and tasting color.
No, and that's like he's like Baker Mayfield, right? And like could easily be a Trent Dilfer, you know what I'm saying? Where like you're getting
not a ring.
That's exactly my fucking point, right? You don't got to be an all-star, to manage a team into a ring, right? And if there's some team that he could go to that could be a surrounding, he could do enough to not fuck it up, right? Because sometimes you're just on a team and you're like a quarterback could just be the position that not fuck it up, right? Where you've got all these other playmakers, or you got just a defense that's just fucking lights out. Like Baker Mayfield could be that. Is he going to take a team? Is he going to lead a team? That could take some development. Are the physical attributes there for that? Sure.
Well, I mean,
has
Marcus,
any of that shown outside of it? No, but like, hey, people can change. But like, really, at the end of the day, though, I don't know what it is about.
Remember, Mac, maybe you remember this. I know there's some OGs in the chat that remember this. You had 5 years before, and then when your 5th year, they go, well, it is his 5th year. This is the year he should be blossoming.
Yeah.
Now you got 5 minutes.
Oh, dude, yeah. Honestly, you know who ruined that though, Jason, was Arizona when they drafted Drew Rosen and then immediately drafted Kyler Murray the next year.
I hated that move.
Right?
I hated that move.
Like when you pull a trigger that quickly, again, the NFL is a copycat league. Well, if we get drafted top 10 quarterback and isn't panning out after the first year, you know what we can do? We can just suck and then get another top 5 pick and then fix it.
But was that I always wondered if that was some weird 3-dimensional chess with like, let's appease these coloreds with a black coach. He will get nothing in the means of support. And I don't think I don't know if anyone is playing that level of really weird 3-dimensional chess to eat that much shit just for the hopes that this young college guy that has very little experience can come in and then bring in this little man and have this little man be so exciting. Baker Mayfield's a little man. Russell Wilson's a little man. And Kyler Murray is a little man. Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are the most exciting little people to play quarterback since Fran Tarkenton and Doug Flutie.
I like that you
I'm
call them
gonna
little
go ahead
mans.
I'm gonna say this, like, real quick, Jason. Like, the thing is, the Bidwells, which is the family that still owns the Cardinals, they're some of the worst owners in professional sports. Like, for years, you could probably stack them in the Sterlings, like 1A, 1B, right? But like, I don't think any Bidwell, like anybody in that family, and it could be a 4-year-old great-great-grandchildren, child. I don't think any of them are smart enough 3D chess to fuck Steve Wilkes, right? Like, I just don't. I think they're just that stupid to be like, well, we did hire a black coach. We took care of the Rooney Rule thing, and we were really bad because of what we did in the front office. But we're just gonna fire him, hire the nice handsome white man. Like, I just don't think it's 3D chess. I just think they're that dumb. The entire family is that fucking dumb. It could be. Really look at them.
I don't want to believe that, Mac. I don't want to believe that there's people are that sinister, because you can only write that in a Hollywood script. Who has time to be that sinister?
I've also interviewed one of the Bidwell sons that works in the front office. He is not a smart man. I don't know how he has a job. Like, honestly, he's really bad, and he's dumb too. So, like, that whole family's just a group full of idiots, allegedly, because I don't have to get sued.
Allegedly. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Red Zone, where we try really, really hard not to get sued and or canceled.
That's right.
We don't try that hard. Tune in tomorrow as This is Revolution. We'll be live. We'll actually talk about what we were supposed to talk about Saturday. I changed the title and the image of the Saturday show, by the way, Marcus.
Oh shit! Do I gotta go look at it now?
It's called Flavored Condoms, Slavery Trauma, and the Savagery of Healthcare. Is that a fair title?
I like it. That that hits everything. I think that hits everything.
Pictures of condoms, different color condoms.
I always said that one to my mom. So I was wondering what I'm up to.
Hey, Ma, I just want you to know I'm doing
Pascal's
this thing.
taking a break for the next few weeks.
I'm doing this thing, but here's the link. Please enjoy the photo.
And so tomorrow I'll be with Doug Lane of Sublation Media. We're probably going to talk also about our big launch party we got cooking in New York City.
What?
Oh yeah. So Marcus will be there, because if not, I'm going to drive to Virginia and kick him in the balls.
I mean, you could just pick me up before then. What if you pick me up and then I'm there instead of you just driving there and kicking me in the balls? I don't know. Just tossing out ideas,
Cut down on a lot of wasted movement there, Jason.
No, I'm gonna come up on the train on the depending on the date, but it's I'm hoping that I can catch it on a Friday, so I'll be riding up with all the elected officials, and I can throw milkshakes at them as I go to the concert.
But yeah, Pascal is taking a break for a while as Ramadan has wiped him out, so we're giving Pascal a break for the next few weeks. So that being said, the Mau Mau Hour is still happening. There's an amazing group of people that help and support the show, so I was able to reach out to someone. So we're going to have a special guest celebrity Mau Mau Hour for Wednesday, and I'm just going to keep that going as long as I can until our brother is rested and ready to return. Check out the clip. Here it is for the show tomorrow. I added some animation to the video this time, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, nice.
I know you better than you know yourself.
Never had
Oh,
a camera in my head.
You're afraid. That's why you can't leave. It's okay, Truman. I understand. I have been watching you your whole life. I was watching when you were born. I was watching when you took your first step. I watched you on the first day of school. The episode when you lost your first tooth. You can't leave, Truman. You belong here. With me.
one of the best closers.
In the 1998 film The Truman Show, Jim Carrey plays the title character, Truman Burbank, who lives an idyllic life in a quaint coastal town that is a cliche of 1950s Americana. A perfect town free of crime, traffic, or unhappy people. Unbeknownst to Truman, the town, his home, is all a lie. He exists in the largest movie set in the world where his entire life is filmed and broadcasted 24 hours a day as The Truman Show. From the womb to adulthood, people have followed the adventures of Truman Burbank. From first steps to first kisses, his parents, wife, and friends are all actors. Every experience, every mundane interaction is curated and sold for public consumption by the Svengali of this simulated paradise, the director of the show, Christoph. Are we now at a point in neoliberal capitalism where, unlike Truman, we are aware that we are indeed the market commodity? All our human interactions are transactions to be bought and sold. Our only value is a market value. The curated experience isn't a nightmare, it's the gold standard. We'll discuss this. We'll ask these questions and more. This is Revolution.
Our subject today, should wiretapping be legalized?
Talk to me. Say something.
Say something, goddammit! You're on television! You're live to the whole world!
I know how this goes. I've seen this movie like 100 times.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Dude, very nice, Jason. Very nice.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow, the same time, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We go live. We're going to get in a deep dive conversation asking the question, are we all the Truman Show now? And I will add this one thing before I go. There's a little clip in there where you see a dude in a silver bikini underwear and like no shirt. That's actually how I move, how I think I look. Work out and I walk around and then I hit the mirror and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't look like that.
I feel like that dude. but
I feel like that.
I do not look like that dude.
No.
No.
But I definitely, I don't know if you guys are the same way, like you lift weights or you do like 100 push-ups. You're like, God damn.
I went on a hike in a park.
And you
And I
knew.
was even just as soon as I got back into the car, I started doing
Yeah,
the
you knew. He was like, "Shit, I'm gonna shave my nuts today."
yeah.
And you just knew. And the mayor came up and said, "Go ahead and shave me if you want to." What you gonna do about that hairy ass behind him?
I mean, I put on Twitter
shaver on a
last night.
stick to reach.
I did leg day yesterday, and after 2 back surgeries, I put up 250 like 6 times, and it's like my ass is gonna look great all summer. and then much like you, Jason, I walked past the mirror and said, the ass might look great, but you still have a gut. And then I'm just like, I'm gonna lean into it. It's hot max summer. I'm just gonna get weird and enjoy myself.
It's a seahorse. It's a seahorse. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Again, we'll be back pretty much all this goddamn week. I'll be on about the same time. So see you guys tomorrow where we talk about the Truman Show. I want to hear your guys' takes on social media, how neoliberal capitalism is doing this to us. And on that note, Tron.